Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabram, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Dhyanamulam Guru Murti, Pujamulam Guru Padam, Mantramulam Guru Vakya, Mokshamulam Guru Kripa. Shivam friends, so today we are going to take our reading of next chapter, that is chapter 20 of Upasna Kand. And in this chapter there is continuity of the story of Punya and Pavana. So in this chapter, the Punya reasons with Pavana. Punya said, who is our father and who our mother? Who are our friends and relatives? Except our notion of them as such. Friends or relatives are like dust raised by the gusts of our airy fancy. The conceptions of friends and enemies and sons and relatives are the products of our affection and hatred of them. These, being the effects of our ignorance, are soon made to disappear into airy nothing upon enlightenment of understanding. The thought of one as a friend makes him a friend. Thinking one as an enemy makes him an enemy. The knowledge of a thing as honey and of another as poison is owing to our opinions of them. There being only one universal soul equally pervading the whole, there can be no reason to conceive of one as a friend and another as an enemy. My boy, of what you are? What makes your identity when your body is only a composition of bones, ribs, flesh and blood, and not yourself? Being viewed in its true light, there is nothing as myself or yourself. A fallacy of our understanding makes me think of me as Punya and you as Pavana. Who is your father and who is the son? Who is your mother and who your friend? One supreme self pervades all infinity. What do you call the self and whom not the self? If you are a spiritual substance and have undergone many births, then you have had many friends and properties in your past lives. Why do you think of them also? You had many friends in flowery fields where you postured in your former form of a stag. Why do you think of those deer who were once your dear companions? Why do you not lament for your lost swan companions in the pleasant pool of lotuses where you did dive and swim about in the form of a gander? Why not lament your fallow trees in the forest where you once stood as a stately tree? You had lion comrades on the rugged mountain crags. Why do you not lament them also? You had many mates among the fish in the clear lakes decked with lotuses. Why not lament your separation from them? You were a monkey in the grey and green woods of the country of Dasarna. You were a prince in the land of frost and a raven in the woods of Pandra. You were an elephant in the land of Hehayas and an ass in that of Trigger. You became a dog in the country of Salya and a bird in the woods of Sarla trees. You have been a peepal tree in the Vindhyan mountains and a wooden insect in the large oak tree. You were a cock on Mandara mountain, then born as a Brahmin in one of its caves. You were a Brahmin in Kosala and a partridge in Bengal. You were a horse in the snowy land and a beast in the sacred ground of Brahma at Pushkar. You were an insect in the trunks of a palm tree, a gnat in a big tree, and a crane in the woods of India. Now you are my younger brother. You have been an ant for 6 months and lain within the thin bark of the Bhukpetra tree in a glen of the Himalayan hills. Now you are born as my brother, as my younger brother. You have been a centipede in the dunghill at a distant village where you lived in for a year and a half. Now you have become my younger brother. Once you were the child of Pulin the tribal woman, and you lived on her breast like the honey sucking bee on the core of a lotus. That same person is now my younger brother. In this manner, my boy, you were born in many other shapes and had to wander all about Asia for numberless of years. And now you are my younger brother. Thus I see the past states of your existence caused by the prior desire of your soul. I see all this by my clear discernment and all viewing sight. I also remember births that I had to undergo in my state of ignorance, which I see clearly before my enlightened sight. I was a parrot in the land of Trigrath and a frog at the beach of a river. I became a small bird in a forest and was then born in these woods, having been in Pulin the hunter in Vindhya, then a tree in Bengal, and afterwards a camel in the Vindhya region. I am at last born in this forest. I, who have been a Chatak cuckoo in the Himalayas and a prince in Ponder province, then a mighty tiger in the forest of Sahiya hill, am now become your elder brother. He who had been a vulture for 10 years, a shark for 5 months, and a lion for a full century is now your elder brother in this place. I was a chakora wood in the village of Andhra, a ruler in the snowy regions, then a proud son of a priest named Sailacharya in a hilly region. I remember the various customs and pursuits of different peoples on earth that I had to observe and follow in my repeated reincarnations among them. In those different lives, I had many fathers and mothers, and many more brothers and sisters, and also friends and relatives, numbering hundreds and thousands. For whom shall I lament, and which shall I forget among this number? Shall I wail only for those I lose in this life? But these also are to be buried in oblivion like the rest, and such is the course of the world. Numberless fathers have gone by, and unnumbered mothers also have passed away and died. Innumerable generations of man have perished and disappeared like withered leaves falling off. There are no bounds, my boy, to our pleasures and pains in this terrestrial world. Lay them all aside and let us remain unmindful of all existence. Forsake your thoughts of false appearances. Relinquish your firm conviction of your own ego and look to that ultimate course which has led to the learned to their final blessing. For what is the commotion of people except a struggle to rise and fall? Therefore, strive for neither, but live regardless of both, like an indifferent sage. Live free from your cares of existence and non existence, then you shall be free from your fears of decay and death. Remember calmly yourself alone. Don't be like the ignorant. Don't allow anything or any accident to move you from your self possession. Know that you have no birth, no death, no fortune or sorrow of any kind, no father or mother, and no friend or foe anywhere. You are only your pure spirit. You have nothing of an unspiritual nature. The world is a stage that presents many acts and scenes. Only those play their part well who are excited neither by its passions and feelings. Those who are indifferent in their views have their quietude amidst all the occurrences of life. Those who have known the true one remain only to witness the course of nature. Those who know God do their acts without thinking themselves their actors, just as the lamps of night witness the objects around without their consciousness of them. The wise witness the objects as they are reflected in the mirror of their minds, just as a mirror and gem receives the images of things. Now, my boy, rub all your wishes and visible signs of memories from your mind and see the image of the serene Spirit of God in your innermost soul. Learn to live like the great sages with the sight of your spiritual light and by effacing all false impressions from your mind. And in the next chapter 21, suppression of desires by suppression of thoughts is discussed. Vasishtha is continuing. Pavan, having been lectured by Punya in this manner, became as enlightened in his intellect as the landscape at daybreak. After they continued living in that forest with the perfection of their spiritual knowledge, they wandered about in the woods to their heart's content. After a long time, they both attained nirvana and rested in their disembodied state of nirvana, like a lamp without oil wasting away of itself. Thus, in the end of man's great boast of having large crowds of followers and numberless friends in their embodied states of lifetime, alas, they carry nothing with them to their afterlife, nor do they leave anything behind which they can properly call theirs. The best means of release from the many objects of our desires is the utter suppression of our desires rather than fostering them. Yearning after objects increases our desire, just as our thinking of something increases our thoughts about it. Fire that burns bright from its fuel soon dies out without it. Now rise, O Ram, and remain aloft as in your aerial car by losing your worldly desires. Look from above with pity upon the miseries of groveling mortals. This is the divine state known as the position of Brahma, which looks from above with unconcerned serenity upon all. By gaining this state, the ignorant are also freed from misery. One walking with reason as his companion, and having good understanding for his consort, is not liable to fall into the dangerous traps that lie hidden in his way throughout life. Being deprived of all properties and destitute of friends, one has no other help to lift him up in his adversity except his own patience and reliance upon God. Let men elevate their minds with learnings, dispassion, and the virtues of self dignity and valor in order to rise above the difficulties of the world. There is no greater good to be derived by any means than by the greatness of mind. It gives security which no wealth or earthly treasure can confer on man. It is only men of weak and crazy minds who are made to swing to and fro, rising and sinking in the tempestuous ocean of the world. The mind, filled with knowledge and full with the light of truth, finds the world filled with ambrosial water and moves over it as easily as a man walking on dry shoes or on a ground covered with leather. Lack of desire fills the mind much more than the fulfillment of its desire. Dry up the channels of desires like autumn heat parches a pool. Otherwise, desires empty the heart and lay open its gaps to be filled by air. The hearts of the greedy are as dry as the bed of the Dead Sea that was drained by Agassi. The spacious garden of human heart flourishes with the fruit of humanity and greatness only as long as the restless ape of greed doesn't infest its fair trees. The spacious garden of the human heart flourishes with the fruit of humanity and greatness only as long as the restless ape of greed doesn't infest its fair trees. The mind, devoid of greed, views the triple world with the twinkling of an eye. The comprehensive mind sees all space and time as infinitesimally small compared to its conception of the infinite Brahma with itself. The coolness of the mind, or the coolness in the mind of a man who is not greedy, is not found in the watery luminary of the moon or in the icy caverns of the snow capped Himalayas. Neither the coldness of plantain juice nor the sandalwood paste is comparable with the cool headedness of one without desire. The mind that doesn't desire shines more brightly than the full moon and more brilliantly than the bright face of Lakshmi, the goddess of prosperity. The urchin of appetite darkens the mind like a cloud obscures the moon, and like black ink obliterates a fair picture. The tree of desire stretches its branches far and wide on every side, darkening the mind with their gloomy shadows. When the branching tree of desire is cut down at its roots, the plant of patience, which was stunted under its shoots forth in 100 branches. When the unfading tree of patience takes the place of the uprooted desires, it produces the tree of paradise that yields the fruit of immortality. O well intentioned Ram, if you do not allow sprouts of mental desires to germinate in your bosom, then you have nothing to fear in this world. When you become sober minded, after moderating your heart's desires, you will have the plant of liberation growing in its full luxuriance in your heart. When the grasping owl of desire nestles in your mind, it is sure you will be invaded by every evil which the foreboding bird brings on its home. Thinking is the power of the mind, and thoughts dwell upon the objects of desire. Therefore, abandon your thoughts and their objects. Be happy with your thoughtlessness of everything. Anything that depends on any faculty is lost upon inaction of that faculty. Therefore, by suppression of your thoughts, you can put down your desires and thereby have rest and peace of mind. Be free minded, Ram, by tearing off all your mind's worldly ties. Become a great soul by suppressing your mean desires of earthly frailties. For who is not set free by being loosened from the chains of desire that bind his mind to this earth? With this, chapter 21 also comes to an end. And in the next chapter 22, there is a story of Mahabali, the benevolent king of demons, and his father Virochana. Vashiji said, O Ram, who is the bright moon of Raghu's race, you should also follow the example of Bali in acquiring wisdom by self discernment. Ram said, Venerable sage, who is acquainted with all natures, it is by your favor that I have gained all that is worth gaining in my heart. And that is our final rest in the purest state of infinite bliss. O sage, it is by your favor that my mind is freed from the great delusion of many desires. Just as the autumn sky is cleared of the rainy season clouds, my soul is at rest and as cold as a stone. It is filled with the ambrosial nectar of divine knowledge and its holy light. I find myself resting in perfect bliss and as illumined as the queen of the stars rising in her full light in the evening. Oh, you dispeller of my doubts, who resembles the clearest autumn sky that clears the clouds of the rainy season, I am never full or satisfied with all your holy teachings. For the advancement of my knowledge, tell me how Bali came to know transcendental truth. Explain it fully unto me, as holy saints reserve nothing from their humble students. Vashiji replied, O Ram, pay attention to the interesting story of Bali. Your attention to it will give you knowledge of the endless, everlasting, and unvarying truth. In a particular part in the womb below this earth, there is a place called the infernal region. It is peopled by milk white goddesses born in the sweet water of the milky ocean. They are of the race of demons, and they filled every gap and chasm of this place with their offspring. In some places, it was peopled by huge serpents with 100,000 heads that hissed loudly with their parted and forked tongues and long forms. In other places, there were mountainous bodies of demons walking in lofty strides, seemingly able to fling words like candy and devour them. In another place, there were big elephants holding up the earth on their raised trunks and supporting islands on their strong, long tusks. In other places, there were ghosts and devils making hideous shrieks and noise. There were gaps of hellish bodies and putrid carcasses of ghostly shapes. Concealed in the dark womb of the nether world, Depths were rich mines of gems and metals reaching to the seventh and lowest layer of the infernal region. Another part of this place was sanctified by the dust of the lotus like feet of the divine sage Kapila, who was adored by gods and demigods who prostrated their exalted heads at his holy feet. Another part of it was presided by the god Shiva in his form of a golden shivling, which was worshipped by lady demons with abundant offerings and merry revelries. Bali, the son of Virochana, ruled in this place as the king of demons. He supported the burden of his kingdom on the pillars of the demon's mighty arms. He forced the gods, the supernatural Vidyadhars, the serpents, and even the kings of the gods to serve at his feet like his vassal retinue, and they were glad to serve him as their lord. He was protected by Vishnu, who contains the shining worlds in the treasure of his belly, and who is the preserver of all embodied beings and the support of the sovereigns of earth. The name Bali struck terror in the hearts of Airavat, the elephant that bears Indra, making his cheeks fade with fear, just as the sound of a peacock petrifies the insides of serpents. The intense heat of his valor dried up the water of the sevenfold oceans of the earth and turned them into seven dry beds, as under the fire of the universal conflagration. But the smoke of his sacrificial fire was like a charm supplying people with water. It caused the rain to fall as profusely from above as the seas below contain waters from above. His frown made the high heads of mountains stoop low to the ground and caused the lofty skies to lower with water, like the high branches of trees when overloaded with fruit. This mighty monarch, after he had made an easy conquest of all the treasures and luxuries of the world, ruled over the demons for myriads of years. Thus, he lived for many ages that glided on like the course of a river rolling about in whirlpools. He witnessed the constant flux and reflux of generations of gods, demons, and men in the three worlds. At last, the king of the demon felt a distaste for all the enjoyments of life that he had tasted to excess. He also felt an uneasiness amidst the variety of his pleasures. He retired to the farthest polar mount of Meru. There, sitting on a ledge of one of its shining heights, he reflected on the state of this world and the vanity of mortal life. Bali thinking to himself, how much longer shall I have to rule over this world with my untiring labor? How much more must I remain to roam about the triple world in my successive reincarnations? Of what use is it to me to have this unrivaled sovereignty which is a wonder in the three worlds? Of what good is it for me to enjoy this abundant luxury so charming to the senses? Of what permanent delight are all these pleasures to me? They are pleasant only for the present short time, and within a moment they are sure to lose all their taste and my jest for them. There is the same rotation of days and nights in unvarying succession, and the same acts repeated day after day. To continue in the same unvaried course of life for a great length of time is rather shameful and in no way pleasant to me or to anyone. The same embraces of our beloved and eating the same food day by day are amusements fit only for playful children. They are disgraceful and disgusting to great minds. What man of taste will not be disgusted to taste the same sweets that he has tasted over and over again, and which have become vapid and tasteless today. What sensible man can continue in the same course without feelings of shame and remorse? The revolving days and nights bring the same revolution of duties. I imagine this constant repetition of the same act is as ridiculous to to the wise as chewing ground meat. The actions of man are like those of waves that rise to fall and then rise again to subside in the waters. Repetition of the same act is the occupation of madmen. A wise man would be laughed as if he kept repeating the same sound, like children conjugating a verb in all its moods, tenses, and inflections. What action is there that once completed doesn't recur, but crowns its actors with its full success all at once? Or if this bustle of the world were for a short duration only, yet what is the good that we can derive from engaging in this commotion? The course of actions is as interminable as ceaseless repetition of boyish sports. It is hollow harping on the same string. The more the string is played, the more it reverberates its hollow sound. I see no such gain for any of our actions. I see nothing that being once gained may prevent our further efforts. What can our actions bring beside the object of sense gratification? They cannot bring about anything that is imperishable. Vashiji speaks. Saying so, Bali fell into a trance of his profound meditation. Then, coming to himself, he thought, "Ah, I remember now what I had heard from my father." So thinking, he stretched his eyebrows and gave expression to what he thought in his mind. I had asked my father Virochan, who was versed in spiritual knowledge and acquainted with the manners of the people of former and later ages, what is that ultimate state of being where our pains and pleasures cease to exist, and after its attainment we have no more to wander about the world or pass through repeated reincarnations? What is that final state toward which our endeavors are directed, where our minds are freed from their error, and where, after all our wanderings and reincarnations, we obtain our full rest? What is that best of gains which gives full satisfaction to the cravings of the soul? What is that glorious object whose sight transcends all other objects of vision? All those various luxuries and superfluities of the world are in no way conducive to our real happiness, because they mislead the mind to error and corrupt the souls of even the wisest of men. Therefore, O Father, show me that state of imperishable joy where I may attain everlasting repose and tranquility. I remember my father was sitting under the shade of the wish fulfilling culp tree of paradise, whose flowers were fairer far than the bright moonbeams covered the ground all around. He spoke to me in his sweet, mellifluous accents the following speech for the purpose of removing my error. So, this speech will be taken into the next chapter 23, and we rest our today's reading session with this reading of chapter 22. So, Shivom, friends, and thanks to Lord Ram, whose grace enabled us for sharing and reading this chapter with you. Thank you very much, Shivoham, friends. We will meet again tomorrow by the grace of Lord Ram. Shivoham.